Trump presidency. Alright. I actually did a video about this, like, the day after the election. I recorded a lot of material trying to explain, how did, Trump win the election. And I went through, so briefly, there are a lot of reasons, as it turns out. I believe in a synergistic view of the world, where if you look for the one reason that this happened or that happened or people act like this or this thing happened, you'll never find it. In real life, everything's dynamic. There are lots of different factors that come together that cause anything to happen. But we as human beings can only perceive a limited number of them. We can only store so many of them simultaneously. We can only think about so many things at the same time. So we generally have kind of a prejudice, a preference for simple explanations for things when in real life there seldom are. So my initial thing was, well, how did Trump win the presidency? I'm not going to pull that video together and post it because it's way too long and boring. It's like, here's another thing, and here's another thing. Well, as it turns out, there are a lot of reasons that Trump won the presidency. And one, it's long and boring, and I didn't want to do it. I got sick of it. I've been really, really, really super unmotivated the last few days. Not a lot's been going on. Not a lot's been coming together, so it's kind of unmotivation, lack of motivation for one. Two, someone posted I've actually seen several different versions of it, so several people this has occurred to, have posted this little chart, which is nothing more than the poll numbers, the end results from the 2008 election, the 2012 election, and this year's 2016 election. And that really just explains it right freaking there, just in one image. That's it. That's all it takes. A little bit of analysis and you're done. The causes for that are a little more complicated, but really it just boils down to a single chart. So another reason I didn't pull the other video together is like, well, there's a much simpler way to explain this, so we'll just go with that and kind of go from there. I made coffee with ultra pasteurized creamer, and that was a huge mistake. There's a coffee cup sitting next to me that is a war crime. It tastes really bad. Don't ever do it. Very, very bad. Alright, where is the thing I'm looking for? Here it is. Alright, this is the thing I wanted to refer to. So, going down the list, this is so simple. This is the simplest thing ever. I'm going to put it in this video. It's just a simple chart. If you look around, there's like multiple people have noticed this. How did Trump win the election? One thing that sort of compelled me to start making the video I started on was obviously the annoying Facebook stuff I was getting. It's like, oh, hate has won, and now there's two different countries, one that's sane and rational, and the other that's shitty and stupid and racist and homophobic and blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, that's not what happened at all. It's the numbers. You can do math and say that's not what happened. Here's the thing you have to keep in mind. In 2008, when it was John McCain versus Barack Obama, the first year that Barack Obama won the election, and incidentally defeated Hillary Clinton in the DNC. Let's go back. A junior senator, very inexperienced junior senator, totally annihilated Hillary Clinton, just destroyed her in the primaries. She's actually not a very good candidate. So once again, multiple reasons that she lost. That's one of them. Reason number two was Barack Obama. His entire campaign was, I'm going to shut down Guantanamo Bay. We're going to have less involvement in the Middle East. We're going to get out of there. We're not going to be holding people indefinitely with no reason and no trial. And he went back on all of them. In 8 years, he did none of those things. He actually made them worse. So another reason that Hillary lost is she going to fulfill the promises Barack Obama made in 2008? And the general consensus is absolutely fucking not. She's not Barack Obama by any means. And that's nothing to crow about. Anyway, that's not my point. My point is that John McCain in 2008 won just under 60 million votes. And he got smashed because Barack Obama got 69. A little less than 10 million more. Not a landslide. Not an overwhelming defeat, but a very good lead. And now another kind of impetus for this video was everyone's calling for the elimination of the Electoral College. Look, the Electoral College exists for a good reason. It's to keep smaller, population-wise, smaller states from being marginalized. Half the population in the United States of America lives in, out of the 3,000 plus counties, half our population lives in just 146 of them. So that creates a problem. That creates a moral hazard where candidates running for president just have to win 146 out of 3,000 some counties. So fuck these other guys. You don't even have to go to certain states. Just make sure that you appeal to, only concern yourself with issues that concern these 146 counties, and done. That's a problem. And the Electoral College is there to not remove it, but obviate it a bit. If we just went by states, just like counted up, 50 votes, in other words, whichever vote the state goes with, then that puts more weight on smaller populations. States that are very small, then you could win a whole bunch of those, which both parties have done. The Republicans lean on that a little more, but both parties do that. Everyone keeps forgetting for some reason that there are a lot of really blue states on the East Coast. The ones where in a map of the U.S. you have, like, on the East Coast this little line and then pointing to about where they are, because the letters for their names won't actually fit on the state itself. Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Vermont, a few others, the really tiny ones. So on a big map of the U.S., it looks very red, but you're forgetting that there are a whole bunch of these very dense little states all along the East Coast. And in 2008, that really worked for Barack Obama's, in his favor. Sometimes the Electoral College thing works in the Democrats' favor, sometimes it works in the Republicans' favor. It definitely helped Barack Obama in 2008, where he won 365. So 270. You need 270 to get the... You need 270 to win. He had almost 90 some fewer than he needed, with only a 10 million vote drop there. With a 10 million vote lead, Barack Obama just annihilated him in the Electoral College. Like I said, sometimes it works in the Democrats' favor. Sometimes, theoretically, it should work in the Republicans' favor more often, but it doesn't always. What you have to understand is Republican voters are consistent. They just vote the same every single year, where Democrats rely more on high voter turnout, people who switch sides more often. So in 2008, McCain got a little under 60 million. In 2012, Mitt Romney got less than 61. It's almost the same number. A little more, like there was more people who vote, like I said, who switch between parties based on politics and the perceiving things that concern them that year. Switched over to Romney. Barack Obama had a lot less support, but he still won by, I think, 4 million. Let's just check that real quick. Yeah, about 4 million. 4 or 5 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. Far less of a lead, and Romney had a lot more support, quote-unquote, a lot more, almost 1 million more votes, but not quite. So that's it. He's still lost, not by a monstrous lead, but Barack Obama still had 332 electoral college votes versus Romney's 206. So, yeah, so as far as the electoral college goes, I think I've mentioned this before. I'm not offended by it. I'm not calling for its dissolution. It serves a purpose and it works pretty well. And people who complain about it, obviously, people who wanted Hillary Clinton to get elected are complaining about it this year, but certainly they weren't complaining about the last two elections. I mean, it is what it is. It's meant to level out the dichotomy between, hey, we have 50 states, we have different populations, so who wins? The more states or the higher population states? Well, this is a way for both to kind of even out. It's a compromise. That's a good one. It's a decent enough one. If I have any problem with it, it's the winner-take-all attitude. If you win a state, you'd get generally, 9 times out of 10, you get both votes. And I think it should be more evenly divided. If it had been, I think this would have been a much closer election. And this was a pretty close election, so maybe that's a thing. I don't know. My whole point in all of this is, in 2008, the Republicans got about 60 million votes. In 2012, the Republicans got about 60 million votes. So here we are in 2016, and guess what? Donald Trump got about 60 million votes. Notice, the numbers didn't change. They changed, but not by much. 59.9 million, 60.9 million, and then 59.6. Worth noting, a lot of people switched. People who used to vote Democrat this year voted for Donald Trump. And the thing is, even with that surge, he went down. He got fewer than McCain. A fair number. Not quite 500,000 less, but a little less than 500,000 less. Even with a bunch of people jumping on board with him, he got fewer than McCain. And McCain got destroyed. Speaking of which, you know who else got fewer votes than McCain this year? Hillary Clinton. And in this case, in this election, like I said, sometimes the Electoral College thing works in the Democrats' favor. More often it works in the Republicans' favor, but it depends. Depends how many people vote. If fewer people vote, it works in the Democrats' favor. If more people vote, it works in the... I'm getting that mixed up. It works in the Republicans' favor if fewer people vote because their constituency is more consistent. Democrats, when more people vote, it works in their favor. Simple as that. Very few people voted. This was a very lackluster election. Almost half the population didn't vote at all. That could have. Done. There's my video. I mean, theoretically, I could stop right there. That's all there is to it. It's very few people voted. No one even Donald Trump got fewer. He gained a whole bunch of protest votes, and that's all you can call them. People who just really hated Hillary Clinton, for good reasons, as an aside. I think a lot of people who voted for him didn't vote for him. They just hated him less. And even then by a narrow margin. This was a huge, no one wanted to vote this year. No one wanted to vote. Oh goodness, let's move on. Okay, what else is there to say about this? Like I said, I think from what we've seen, and from what I've heard, I'm a libertarian, right? So, on my Facebook feed, I've got a fair number of Republicans, some of which are pretty hardcore Republicans. I've got quite a few Democrats, or leftists anyway. I've got quite a few libertarians, funny that, and quite a few Green Party members, and quite a few other parties, independents, hardcore anarcho-capitalists, full-on anarchists. I suspect somewhere in there's a communist or two. I can think of one, actually. So, yeah, so I get them all. I actually think for this one video, I'm actually decently qualified to talk about this, because I hate both of these assholes, so I have no prejudices as far as that goes. I don't know. Kind of the impetus for this was it's a meme I saw earlier this year. I think it's older than that. The everyone who disagrees with me is Hitler, and like I said, there are quite a few factors here that played in. One of which is a lot of people voted for Trump. Like I said, Republicans, from what I hear, 1.5 million of them didn't, who normally would vote for damn near any Republican candidate, didn't vote for Trump. But a number of people did vote for Trump simply as a protest to this attitude of people who disagree with me are just wrong and evil and stupid and homophobic and uneducated, and this was kind of the protest to that. They might have thought Trump was awful, but less awful than Hillary Clinton. I mean, this was a weird election in that I think a fair number of voters weren't motivated by either of the candidates, but rather what the candidates, or even what their positions, or even their parties stood for, but rather the parties themselves were kind of stand-ins for certain cultural elements that are going on right now, certain cultural conflicts. The left quarter, once again, I'm just going to call them that. From now on, actually, that's just the thing I'm going to do. Maybe I'll have to explain it each time, I don't care. But it's that attitude of, well, you disagree with me, there, ergo you must be wrong. And in other words, voting for a Democrat, regardless of who it was going to be, is value signaling. It's like, look, I'm a good person. I'm not against homosexuality or I'm not against trans rights, or I'm not against, name an element of PC culture. And that's fine. Those are fine positions to have. I happen to agree with many of them. But the idea that if you don't agree, you're going to be shouted down. You should be publicly humiliated. You're going to lose friends because you don't have the same opinion as everyone else. It doesn't sound that great when you put it that way, does it? But that's really how it's being put. It's, look, if you don't agree with the rest of the group, you're banned from the group. You don't get to be a part of the group. And this was a backlash against that. Was it a monstrously huge backlash? No. Like I said, Trump got less votes than McCain. And he wasn't exactly a shining star back in 2008, now was he? For that matter, Hillary Clinton got less than McCain because she stood for nothing. I mean, people used her as a stand-in for PC culture, and that's it. That's all she had, and more people are getting sick of that to the point, and it's not like they're moving over to Trump. They're just the blue party is losing people's support because that's not a cool attitude, that people should be silenced. People should be engaged. People should be debated. I mean, I'd like to debate. There are elements I would love to debate. Brexit in particular, the British exit from the European Union. I have a lot of questions for supporters of that. I would love to have an engaged debate, but if I just jumped on an anti-Brexit forum or something, like, hey, I have these questions about it, I would just be shouted down, I'd be made fun of, and then I'd probably be banned very, very swiftly. If this was very much, well, if the discussion can't happen, then we're going to go with the guy who says he's going to get rid of that attitude, that he's going to deliberately fight that culture of silencing and shaming people who have different opinions. That's why he was able to get as far as he was. Once again, please note, as far as he was able to get, it was not that impressive. Once again, less than McCain, less than John McCain in 2008. And if that wasn't a popular stance, well, look at Hillary Clinton, who got less than any Democrat in quite a while. So, whatever. It's just something I noticed. It's just a response to this attitude, and I'm seeing the same freaking attitude, just blasting up Twitter and blasting my Twitter, blasting Facebook. It's just nauseating, and it's like, look, this isn't why people didn't vote for Donald Trump because he's a racist, homophobic, sexist who's being allegedly like sought after for these allegations of sexual assault. And no, people don't support that or defend it. It's just that's the guy who says he's going to work against this culture. He's not going to be the status quo. And if you're unwilling to engage that side, engage a fair amount of the population of this country that you live in, then you're the one who's going to be marginalized. Yeah? You keep unfriending people, you're going to run out of friends. I don't know. One parting shot. I mean, I'm obviously I'm not of the mind to jump on any social media, for that matter YouTube, and do a sack dance. I'm not happy about a Donald Trump president, obviously. And that's kind of the thing, like, why am I not more upset about this or that or the other? It's like, once again, it's not just that my candidate didn't win. The odds of him winning were very, very, very slim. Or that I've come to accept, so I knew in advance that it was going to be one of these two guys. Think of it more this way. Both of these people, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, are reprehensible for different reasons. They're both terrible. Whether they're equally terrible is tough to say. I mean, they got very similar number of votes, and by extension, a very similar lack of votes. So clearly it's divided. It's an unpopularity contest, and Hillary won a bit on a technicality. But understand, it's also, both of them are reprehensible for different reasons. So regardless of how this turned out, one of them was going to get a comeuppance, and that was a little satisfying. I mean, if Donald Trump had won this, his stupid face would have a frowny shit fit. That would have been very satisfying. As it is, you have Hillary Clinton, one of the most transparently corrupt politicians I've ever seen. I'm even aware of in my lifetime. I mean, just, it's obvious. Like, prior to the election, the way, Bill Clinton was doing speeches, in seminars and stuff for $50 million, not technically illegal, but the moral hazard was there, and it's very obvious people were trying to buy his wife's influence for when she became the president, something a lot of other people assumed was just a done deal anyway. The fact that all those people who bought off Hillary Clinton wasted their money, I kind of have to confess to getting a little thrill out of that, and if the exit polls are any indication, I'm not the only one. So there's kind of that satisfaction of, you can't just buy the presidency. Donald Trump's a businessman. No, he's not. He's a pitiful excuse for one. He's declared bankruptcy like 7 times. He's just a guy who games the system and is able to make believe he's a great business leader. So the idea that that you can't buy the presidency this year is kind of awesome. That's a good thing. Oh, okay. What else? Not much else, honestly. I've had the weird experience of, during the election, being told that, prior to the election, being told that my vote was irrelevant. Third party throwing it away. And then during, I was like, well, I'm hateful and awful. I did another video about it because I was voting for a third party candidate. And then Then after the election, I'm told that I decided the election. So I went from irrelevant to super powerful. Funny that. And I'm not the first person to say this, not the only person to say this, not the first person to say this. I'm certainly not going to be the person to say this best. But the attitude, I'm not even calling them the left and right anymore. It doesn't fit because the names imply the left half or the right half. And they're not half. Half of the people didn't vote, didn't want to vote. Looked at these two candidates. For Christ's sake, like I said, Donald Trump gained a bunch of people who in 2008 voted for Barack Obama, and his net votes went down from John McCain. I've heard numbers imply that he lost 1.6 million, like more than 1.5 million staunch Republicans. They just looked at this guy and said, we don't no. Hardcore Republicans, like I said, vote very consistently. They just vote the same every single year. Looked at this guy and just said, like, we're out this year. No. In other words, insisting that the Republicans run a better candidate if they want more votes. That's I agree with that completely. I don't agree with Republicans or Democrats on a lot of issues, but that is a good attitude to take. I think the left, I'm going to call them the quarter, left quarter, right quarter, because they're literally, that's what happened. Trump got about a quarter of the votes. Hillary Clinton got about a quarter of the votes. They're not half of the country anymore. And that's how Hillary lost. That is, in a nutshell, Barack Obama was able to get more centrists, people who disagreed with certain policies of the Bush administration, of 8 years of the Bush administration, and policies that had preceded Bush, from Clinton. But, sorry, I have a bad cold. Not bad, but I have a cold. But he didn't do the thing he was supposed to do. And the frustrating part is that does concern me. I'm with the 2007-2008 peace movement on this hardcore. We shouldn't be running around in other countries and spending so much on defense that's just going to invade other countries, and just out of control military spending. And then Barack Obama got in office, and it's just the same thing. And then the left quarter stopped complaining about it. So, while you have so many people throwing a fit, especially the left quarter, that's what I'm talking about. This 25% of the voting population threw a goddamn fit on Wednesday. Obviously, I was hoping Gary Johnson would get elected. It was actually possible for him to get elected. There was a little loophole in the way our electoral process works, but for it to have kicked in, both of the candidates would have had to have failed to get 270 million votes, or 270 electoral votes, pardon me. But, Trump got enough of them, so that went forward anyway. It was an off chance anyway. So I knew I was just going to get one of these shitty ass candidates, and I hated both of them. Trump for obvious reasons, but Hillary Clinton because she doesn't stand for anything. Total warmonger, total hawk, out of control spending, doesn't care about any of that. I don't know what she's in favor of. And during this entire election thing, I just heard that she was in favor of love and peace. I'm like, this candidate? No. There have been no compelling arguments to suggest otherwise. So what do I expect from Trump? I expect him to do largely a lot of the same bullshit Barack Obama did, but I expect the left quarter to stop ignoring that, just to actually draw a huge amount of attention to it. So the net effect is kind of sort of positive. The alternative was Hillary Clinton would get elected, do worse things than worse than drone strikes on innocent people and hundreds of children. The guy who's in the White House right now ordered drone strikes that killed, this is a fact, killed hundreds of children. And no one talks about that. Well, now that, and I don't want to be cynical, I really don't, but the reason for that is so obvious. I mean, please tell me I'm wrong, but it's people are willing to ignore the military murdering children because they really like Barack Obama. Like, they're so in favor of this team, the Blue Donkey team, that it's not as big a deal as it was in, 2007, 2008. That's terrible, but I think that's true. But now they have no affiliation. Even Republicans don't like Donald Trump, so no one's gonna look the other way when Donald Trump does the exact same stuff. So that's more positive. I mean, that's kind of my point here. It's, why did people vote for Trump? Because they saw the end result being less awful than Hillary. That says a lot, considering that Donald Trump looks freaking awful. And he's just shit-talking awfulness. But, I don't know, that's it. I'd just be babbling from this point forward. I should just end it. But yeah, it's, like I said, this was going to be a very long video, but there's not much to this. If the Democrats want to win the House, they have to have some sort of policy positions and follow through with them. Hillary had none. Her policy position was, I really want to be the president. Actually, it's the same policy position as Donald Trump, so whatever. Fuck them both. That's me. I'm out.